picture this scenario for a moment. You have someone on your team who is, without a doubt, like the absolute hardest working person in the room.
Oh, yeah. Every team has one. The first in, last out type.
Exactly. Nobody questions their work ethic. They are logging on before sunrise, leaving late at night, and just crushing every single deliverable you throw at them.
Flawless output across the board.
Right. Flawless. And then, the end of your review rolls around, they sit down across from their director, fully expecting the big promotion.
Now you want the title bump.
They want the bump, the recognition for basically carrying the team. But instead, the director looks at them and says, well, you are exceptional at doing the work, but we need you to be exceptional at developing the people who do the work.
Ouch, yeah.
And just like that, they get passed over.
It is a genuinely devastating moment.
Yeah.
And, what is so frustrating is that it happens all the time in corporate environments.
Also,
You have these high performers who just hit this ceiling. They are effectively penalized because they are, well, simply too good at doing the work themselves, and they haven't figured out how to shift gears.
because they haven't actually learned how to lead yet. I mean, they know how to produce, but not how to, multiply that production across a team.
Right.
And the wildest part of this whole dynamic is that the gap between doing the work and leading the work is almost entirely a language problem.
That is the absolute core of it, yes.
Yeah.
Welcome to the deep dive. It's great to be exploring this with you today.
Oh, it's great to have you.
We are pulling from an incredibly practical source for this discussion today. It's the Sharp English Episode 12 script on delegating like a CEO.
Yeah, and what I love about this material is that it gives us the exact vocabulary to fix this issue. We aren't just talking about abstract leadership theory today.
No, not at all.
We are extracting the actual high-value corporate English phrases that separate the perpetually overwhelmed managers from the highly effective leaders.
Because, let's be honest, most managers are terrified to hand off work.
Oh, absolutely terrified.
It feels incredibly risky. When your own reputation is tied to an outcome, handing the execution over to someone else feels like, giving up control.
Yeah. You worry they won't do it the way you would.
Exactly. You think about the time it will take to train them, correct their mistakes, manage the whole process, and you inevitably conclude, well, honestly, it would just be faster to do it myself.
I'll just do it.
Right, so you do, over and over again.
And the result of that is your team stays junior because they never get to stretch their skills, right? And your own calendar stays completely full.
Absolutely packed with execution work.
Right. And eventually, leadership looks at you and wonders why you are bogged down in the weeds when you are supposed to be, operating at a higher strategic level. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
How do we actually fix this language problem?
So, to stop doing everything ourselves, we have to recognize a fundamental disconnect in our daily communication. There is a massive difference between what we believe we are handing off and what that team member actually, interprets.
Right.
It all comes down to the vital distinction between a task and a responsibility.
I think about it this way. Handing off a task is like giving someone a paint by numbers kit.
Okay, I like that.
You are telling them, here is the picture, here are the colors, just color inside the lines exactly where I tell you to. There's no creativity there, no real ownership.
Just compliance.
Exactly. It's comforting in a way because it's hard to mess up, but it completely stunts their growth. But giving someone a responsibility is like handing them a blank canvas and saying, we need a painting of a landscape. Go.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. I mean, a task is measured purely by completion. Did you color inside the lines? Check the box.
Yeah.
But a responsibility is measured by the outcome. Did we capture the essence of the landscape? Most managers hand over tasks when they genuinely mean to hand over responsibilities.
They just haven't been taught the vocabulary to signal the difference. So how do you actually hand over the blank canvas? If I'm sitting down with an employee, how do I signal that shift without sounding like I'm just reading from some corporate handbook?
It starts with the very first sentence of the conversation. Think about how a typical delegation starts. Most managers open with the task itself.
What?
They say something like, I need you to write the client brief for the Henderson account.
Which instantly sounds like an errand.
Yes.
I hear that and I think, okay, there is a deliverable and I am the factory worker producing it.
Precisely. You immediately limit their cognitive engagement to just execution.
Yeah.
The phrase you should use instead is, I want to give you ownership of something.
Wow, I want to give you ownership of something. Even just hearing that out loud feels heavier.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it completely changes the atmosphere in the room.
What's fascinating here is the psychological impact of that single word, ownership. Ownership implies authority. It tells the team member that their judgment actually matters.
It's not just following orders.
Right. It signals to their brain that they aren't just blindly executing a predefined vision, they're being asked to develop one of their own. That single shift in the opening sentence activates a completely different level of executive functioning.
Because when you own something, you put more of your own identity into it. You aren't just a pair of hands on a keyboard anymore. You become the architect.
Exactly.
But I can see a massive pitfall here.
Uh-oh.
Let's say I sit down with my team member, look them in the eye, and drop that heavy sentence. I want to give you ownership. If I just leave it at that, aren't I risking a total disaster? I mean, they own it, but they might drive the project straight off a cliff.
Oh, yeah. That is exactly the danger. You can't just drop the word ownership and walk away. That isn't delegation. That is abdication.
Right. Dumping the work.
Once you have shifted their mindset from a task to a responsibility, you have to establish the context. Why them? What is the goal? And what are the boundaries?
And the sharp English script offers a really specific formula for this part, doesn't it?
It does.
It suggests saying, I'm handing this to you because I think you're the right person for it. Here is what I need, and here is what success looks like.
Let's break down the mechanics of why that works so well.
Yeah.
By naming exactly why they were chosen before you even discuss the details of the project, you are fundamentally altering their relationship to the work.
Yeah, making it personal.
Because in corporate settings, so much work feels arbitrary. When a manager just dumps a file on your desk, it feels like it's only there because you are the nearest available person with free capacity.
It feels like punishment for being efficient, honestly. Oh, you finished your work early? Here's more.
Exactly. But when you say your relationship with these specific stakeholders makes you the best person to handle this, or your analytical skills on the last project proved you can manage this complexity, it becomes a choice.
You're showing them why them.
Yes. You are actively signaling trust based on their unique attributes. It turns the work from an offloaded burden into a marker of prestige and capability.
It makes them feel seen. It validates their specific skills. And then once you've built that psychological safety, you set the destination.
Right.
The phrase provided is, the outcome I'm looking for is X. How you get there is yours to decide.
You are handing over the destination, but giving them the route? This is the crux of developing a person's critical thinking.
Letting them figure it out.
Because if you specify the method, if you tell them what font to use, who to email first, how to structure the meeting agenda, you aren't delegating. You are remote controlling them. And people who are remote controlled never learn how to navigate on their own.
Okay, I had to challenge this a little bit, though.
Go for it.
Let's say you have a team member who is stepping up to a high-stakes client project for the very first time. If I just say, here's the outcome, how you get there is entirely up to you, I feel like that massive amount of open space would cause intense anxiety.
Oh, completely.
Speaking for myself, if I didn't even know where to start, I would be paralyzed. The blank canvas is great, but a blank canvas with a ticking clock is terrifying.
That is a highly astute observation, and it addresses the reality of workplace anxiety. When it is a first-time handoff, throwing them into the deep end with zero structure can trigger a fight-or-flight response.
Yeah, they just freeze.
Right. The goal is to stretch them, not break them. So you provide what the script beautifully terms delegation with training wheels.
Okay, I like that imagery. How do we build these training wheels using our language?
You offer a framework, but you explicitly remove the mandate to use it. The phrase to deploy is, here is a structure that has worked before, but you're not bound by it.
You're not bound by it. That's a fascinating caveat.
It creates a psychological safety net.
Yeah.
You're giving them scaffolding. If they are staring at the blank canvas and feeling that paralysis you mentioned, they can lean on your structure to get moving.
Right, like a fallback plan.
Exactly. But if they have a spark of innovation or they see a more efficient route, you've already given them permission to discard your method. You aren't prescribing the route. You're just offering a map they can choose to follow or ignore.
It lowers the barrier to entry without stripping away the autonomy. But what about the non-negotiables?
Ah, yes.
Because every project has elements that simply cannot be altered. Budget constraints, legal requirements, brand guidelines. How do you stop them from changing things that absolutely must stay the same?
You explicitly define the sandbox. The language to use here is critical. You say, here are the things that are fixed, and here is where you have room to make calls.
Room to make calls. That phrasing implies real authority.
It does. And more importantly, it removes ambiguity. Ambiguity is the absolute enemy of effective delegation. Think about the neurological response to ambiguity in a high-stakes corporate environment.
It's stressful.
Very. If an employee doesn't know what is flexible and what isn't, they will spend immense cognitive energy second-guessing every decision.
So they end up paralyzed again.
Right. They will either change something critical that damages the project, or, more likely, they will be too afraid to innovate at all.
Yeah.
By clearly stating, the formal tone of this client document is fixed, but the structure and sequence of the data is where you have room to make calls, you eliminate that fear.
You free up their mental bandwidth. They know exactly where they are allowed to play and apply their judgment.
Yeah.
And this isn't just theoretical, right? There is hard data backing up the impact of this kind of clarity.
Absolutely. The materials point to some highly compelling Gallup research. They found that employees who strongly agree they have clear expectations from their manager are 2.5 times more likely to be engaged at work.
2.5 times. That is a massive leap in engagement just from clarifying boundaries.
Because clarity creates safety. And, the number one reason people cite for having unclear expectations is that their manager's delegation conversations never actually specified what success looked like or where the boundaries were.
Oh, wow.
The managers just assumed the employees knew.
Which is an incredibly unfair assumption to make. So if we trace our steps, we have given them ownership. We've validated why they are the right person.
Yes.
We've defined the outcome, offered training wheels if they need them, and clearly marked the boundaries of the sandbox. They are off doing the work. But as a manager, you are still ultimately on the hook for the result.
You are.
You can't just vanish for 3 weeks. How do you check in on their progress without completely destroying the autonomy you just spent all this time building?
This is where the vast majority of managers stumble. And it usually starts with one specific, incredibly common phrase that we need to aggressively scrub from our vocabulary.
I feel like I know exactly what you're going to say. Is it just let me know if you need anything?
That is the one. It is pervasive.
But on the surface, that sounds so supportive. It sounds like you are being helpful and accessible. Why is that such a dangerous phrase?
Because you have to look at the underlying power dynamic. That phrase places the entire burden of seeking help squarely on the shoulders of the team member.
Right.
In a corporate environment, especially when someone is stretching into a new, high-visibility responsibility, asking for help often feels synonymous with admitting failure.
I completely see that. If you trust me with a big project and I come back 2 days later asking for help, I'm worried you're going to think, well, I guess I made a mistake trusting them.
Exactly. It feels like they are saying, I can't handle this. So human nature dictates that they won't let you know when they hit a roadblock.
They'll just hide it.
They will suffer in silence, try to figure it out themselves, and you won't actually hear from them until the roadblock has escalated into a full-blown crisis.
You are basically daring them to admit defeat. So we need a safety net that doesn't rely on them waving a white flag. What is the alternative?
You schedule the support proactively, and you fundamentally reframe its purpose. The key phrase to use is, check in with me at this specific point, not to report, but so I can remove any blockers.
Wow. Not to report, but so I can remove any blockers. That single sentence completely shifts the center of gravity in the relationship.
It really does. If you just say, check in with me on Tuesday, the employee hears, Tuesday is inspection day. I need to polish my work and prove I'm making progress.
Yeah, that sounds like a test.
It feels like micromanagement, which brings all that anxiety rushing back. But when you explicitly state that the purpose is to remove blockers, you transition from being an inspector to being a facilitator.
It makes me think of the difference between a surveillance drone and a snowplow.
Oh, I love that.
If my manager is just hovering over me, watching my every move like a drone, I'm going to freeze up. I'm going to heavily manage the information I give them so I look competent.
You'll hide the messy parts.
Exactly. But if my manager is a snowplow, driving out ahead of me, clearing the ice and the obstacles out of the road so I can go faster, I actively want to talk to the snowplow. I'm going to point out the obstacles so they can clear them.
That is a phenomenal analogy.
Yeah.
And to build on that, the snowplow doesn't drag your car down the road. You still have to press the gas pedal. You are still driving the project.
Right, I'm still doing the work.
The manager is just ensuring the road is clear of bureaucratic ice or resource bottlenecks. Because they don't feel judged, you actually get real, unvarnished information about the state of the project, rather than a highly sanitized status report designed to make them look good.
Okay, so you are playing the role of the snowplow. You check in, you clear the blockers, the system is working.
Yes.
But what happens when the work actually comes back to you, the draft is done, and, well, it's just wrong?
Mhm.
Because let's face reality, especially on a first-time delegation, they aren't going to nail it 100% on the first try. How do you course correct without crushing the confidence you just built?
The instinct for almost every high-performing manager in this moment is to take the keyboard back. They say, this isn't quite right. Let me just show you how I would do it.
Or worse, they smile, say thanks, and then quietly rewrite the whole thing themselves at midnight.
Oh, the midnight rewrite, yes.
Yeah.
Which instantly rips the ownership right back from the employee. It communicates that it was never really their project to begin with.
Precisely. You've just devolved their responsibility back into your task.
Exactly. Instead, the phrase to use for course correction is, this is a strong start here is the one thing I'd like you to revisit.
The one thing. Not, here are my 17 track changes.
This is a critical insight from the sharp English materials. You have to understand the cognitive load on the employee when receiving feedback. A massive list of revisions sends a very clear, demoralizing message.
You failed.
Right. It says the gap between your judgment and my standard is impossibly wide. It completely erodes their confidence. It triggers a sense of learned helplessness where they think, I'll never get it exactly how they want it, so why even try?
Right. If you bleed red ink all over their document, you are just punishing them for taking the initiative you asked them to take.
But giving them one specific structural thing to revisit says, you got the vast majority of this, right? Now let's refine this one core area. It keeps the pen in their hand.
They still own it.
It keeps the ownership firmly on their desk. They go back, they figure it out, and they learn your standard without feeling like they just failed a massive final exam.
And there is another trap here, isn't there? A really insidious phrase that slips out when managers are trying to be constructive but ends up doing a lot of psychological damage.
Yes.
Yeah.
The phrase is, I would have done it differently, but even if you follow that up with, but this works fine, the damage is done the moment the first clause leaves your mouth.
Because what the team member actually hears is, your judgment was wrong, my judgment is superior, and I am just humoring you by accepting this.
Exactly. It instantly invalidates the team member's thought process. It makes the conversation about your personal preference rather than the objective outcome of the project.
Right.
If their way is genuinely better, you should have the humility as a leader to say so. Tell them, the way you structured this argument is much stronger than how I usually approach it. I'm going to remember that technique.
But if it's just different,
If their way is just different from yours and still achieves the outcome perfectly well, accept it without the comparison. The ultimate goal of delegation is their growth and the company's success, not replicating your exact personal habits.
that is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of high performers who have built their entire careers on their specific way being the best way.
It's very tough.
But it is entirely necessary if you want to build a real team. All right, so we've navigated the setup, the boundaries, the check-ins, and the course corrections. That brings us to the final piece of the interaction, the ultimate close.
The handoff.
Right. All of this preparation, all of this careful language leads up to the moment the conversation ends and the team member walks out of your office or, logs off the call.
And those very last words you speak will seal the entire dynamic of the project. If you revert to task-based language here, you can destroy all the momentum you just built.
The source material highlights one specific phrase to extract for this moment. Instead of ending with the generic, okay, let me know how it goes, you look at them and say, this is yours. I trust your judgment on it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the crux of true leadership. We talk endlessly in the corporate world about empowering our teams.
It's such a buzzword.
It really is. Companies build massive frameworks, hire consultants, and write lengthy policies about empowerment. But empowerment isn't a policy document. It is not an abstract concept. It is fundamentally these 5 words spoken at the end of a clear conversation. I trust your judgment.
So what does this all mean for the daily reality of the manager and the employee?
It means you are transforming the transaction. When you utilize these targeted phrases, when you clearly set the outcome, draw the boundaries, build in supportive check-ins to clear blockers, and end with an explicit declaration of trust, you turn mere compliance into genuine commitment.
They care about it now.
A team member who is told, let me know how it goes, walks out of the room carrying a heavy to-do list. A team member who is told, I trust your judgment on it, walks out carrying a sense of deep personal responsibility for the success of the business.
It fundamentally alters how much of themselves an employee puts into the work. They aren't doing the project just because they fear the consequences of doing it badly or because they want to avoid a reprimand.
Right.
They're doing it because they feel chosen, trusted, and capable. That is a completely different energy to bring to a challenge.
And the side effect for you, the manager, you
Yeah.
finally get your time back. You can actually step away from the keyboard.
Yeah.
You get out of the weeds because you have systematically built a team that knows how to execute at a high level without requiring your constant intervention and supervision.
Which brings us right back to where we started with that hardworking employee who got passed over. Delegation is not just dumping your overflowing to-do list onto someone else's desk so you can go to another meeting.
Not at all.
It is a highly specific, intentional language skill, and its primary purpose is to build capable leaders out of junior team members so that you can step up to the level of strategy and vision you are meant to be operating at.
It is the essential shift from being the hardest worker in the room to being the most effective multiplier of talent.
Exactly. Think about the plate of work you have in front of you right now. I challenge you to find one piece of work, just one that you have been holding on to, doing yourself, that someone on your team is truly capable of owning.
Hand it over to them today.
Yes,
Today.
but do it differently this time. Tell them specifically why you chose them for this. Set the parameters, give them the destination, and build in a blocker clearing check-in. And then I want you to end the conversation with exactly these 5 words. This is yours. I trust your judgment on it. Then just step back and watch how differently they carry that work.
It will be a revelation for both of you. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay, let's hear it.
This raises an important question that builds on everything we've discussed. We've just spent all this time exploring how the language you use outwardly shapes the confidence and the capabilities of your team. But consider this. What does the internal language you use when delegating to yourself say about your own growth?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting pivot. How do you mean?
When you approach your own career development, the new skills you need to learn, the strategic leaps you need to make to get to that next level, are you treating your own growth as just another task to be completed on a checklist? Or are you treating it as a responsibility where you truly own the outcome and trust your own judgment?
Because if you're just treating your career like a paint-by-numbers kit, well, you might just remain that person working late, crushing the deliverables, and still wondering why you aren't moving forward.
Exactly. The words we choose dictate the reality we build, both for our teams and for ourselves.
What a phenomenal way to frame it. A huge thank you to everyone for joining us on this deep dive. Take those phrases, put them into practice, see what happens to your team, and we will catch you next time.